How you doing? Welcome back to another video. Today, I'm going to talk about 3 ways to avoid depression after quitting drinking alcohol. Now, this video is based around my experience of depressed feelings, why I speak about feeling depressed instead of being depressed, and 3 things that I think you can do to avoid a lot of the depressive thoughts that come about. We all feel depressed at one time or another. It's a really strange term, I think, depressed. I mean, what does it mean to be depressed? It's an odd word with a sort of a vague meaning. It's like addiction in that sense. There's no real meaning. There's only an individual meaning, or what we take as an individual meaning. And I get it. It's a general down feeling. It's a general negative, pessimistic sort of a thing. But when we're talking about alcohol doesn't cure feelings of depression. In my opinion and in my experience, it makes them worse. In the moment, yes, you can get yourself so out of it, so drunk that you're not really capable of thinking straight. You're not really capable of thinking about how depressed you feel, right? You're not capable of even thinking straight. So, I mean, the feelings don't go. The feelings are at best numbed and repressed. But, I've had too many drunken experiences where alcohol has just made things worse. Alcohol is a depressant. And, even though that first anticipatory drink might give you a bit of a lift, everything after that is downhill. So overall, the more I did this, the more I drank, the more that behavior came out in me, the more my mooding, or that general inclination of my moods, was despondent, anxious, guilty, very negative. I went through some really negative periods, and it was a general trend that my life was becoming darker. You start thinking darker thoughts. You start seeing yourself in a much more negative way. You start seeing your life and everyone around you in a much more negative way. Even those comparisons that you're making with other people can be a bad thing. So anyway, the first thing I'll say to you is that stopping drinking alcohol is not a cure for depression, right? It's not a cure, but it might be a starting point. And that's the way to look at this is, just because you stop drinking alcohol, you're heading into a period which might get a little bit worse before it gets better, right? That you have to put up with discomfort that you might not otherwise have had to put up with. And I'm talking about that discomfort in the sense of what I was saying earlier on about you can, when you've got alcohol as a tool, which is like a hammer, you can knock yourself out with it. You don't have to think about the depression. So it's one way of using alcohol as a coping strategy, but it's not a good coping strategy because long-term it's going to fuck you up, and it's going to pull you down into a rabbit hole that you just cannot get out of. So even though stopping drinking alcohol is not that cure, it is a starting point. It is a starting point. It's not a magic bullet. It's not going to, as soon as that's it, you're cured of your depression, or you're all of a sudden on an upward track. That's not going to happen. Right? Or, it's unlikely to happen. The feeling and the thinking of depression that you have is unique to you as an individual. And the only common denominator is that depression is generally experienced as that negative, like we were saying earlier on. So I can only present from the perspective of what has worked for me. And, there's a lot of things that I've read over the years. And one of the things from a sort of a Zen perspective is that it's the art of seeing inside one's own self, to be able to peer inside yourself and to understand, or to begin to understand what's going on. You are what you think and what you do. What you think inside of your head and what you do in life, that is what is the end result of what you are going to be. So what you think and do, the way you are expressing yourself in this moment, that is the nature of your reality, right? Not anyone else's, but your reality. So this video is from that sort of a Zenish perspective, right? The second thing is that depression is a dynamic experience. And what I mean by that is, I love the expression, you can never step into the same river twice, right? That as soon as you step into it once, the river is gone, the water is gone, everything about it is changing, and it's the same with your life. You're always changing. You're never the same. You're never the same person. Your life is never the same. The people around you are all changing all the time. And you hear people defining themselves through depression, through that word depression. I am a depressive, or it's my depression, or I have depression. And it's the same sort of thing where people say, I am a drinker. And this is something that I told myself for years and years, all the way through my life. I told myself, I'm a drinker. This is who I am. If I want to be a man, I've got to be a drinker. If I want to be a man, I've got to be a meat eater. If I want to be a man, I've got to be this, that, and the other, right? I've got to act a certain way. I've got to, and there's certain things that I still hold on to, that I still believe, right? That if that is still part of my core self. Things like alcohol, and there's other things in life that are not, they're not suitable for a healthy lifestyle. So you have to get rid of those things. But because we're raised with the awareness that they're there, but without the awareness to think about them or to question them or to rail against these things, sometimes, we just take them as accepted. So when people say that they have something, it's like putting it into a box and saying, well, this is something that I have, and I'm always going to have this. This is something that I am, and I'm always going to have this. When you tell yourself, I am feeling depressed right now, it's a momentary thing. You take the thing and you say to yourself, well, this is how I feel in the moment, but it might not be how I feel in 10 minutes time, or an hour's time, or 10 hours time, or 10 days time. Do you get what I mean? It's what you think about yourself right now means that there is a possibility for change. If you say to yourself, I am depressed, or I have depression, or, it's my depression, these are things that can constrict your life in the sense that you make it difficult for yourself to get outside of that. And once you say to yourself, well, I'm feeling depressed right now, then you can start to say, well, what am I feeling depressed about? What is it exactly that I'm feeling depressed about? Why do I feel depressed? What exactly am I feeling? If you can't pinpoint these things, or if you can't start to pinpoint them, if you can't start to get a handle on exactly why you're feeling depressed, or what is depressing you at that moment, then how can you fix it? And it's one of those things, if you take this as a box and it's just this huge thing called depression, how are you ever likely to fix that? Except by going down to a doctor and getting some pills that are going to help you not to think about things. And for me, it's just as bad as drinking alcohol, from certain perspectives, in that it takes you out of your ability to be able to sort things out for yourself. So the third thing I'd say to you is that you're not alone in this. Millions of people are feeling depressed in the world at this moment, in time. There's a lot of people who feel that they are depressed and that is their constant way of life. But there are just millions of people who are just going through depression at this time. And, everyone feels depressed at some stage in their lives, some stage of their day, some stage of the week, whatever. And I believe that the more you can think this way, the more you can think about it. Well, I am depressed now. There's other people that are depressed now, but maybe they're not going to be depressed tomorrow, and I'm not going to be depressed tomorrow. And what can I do to turn that around? The fourth thing I'd say to you is you are what you put into this. In V2, we use a process called the vigorous cycle, and it's a pretty detailed thing that we spend a lot of time building up and breaking down a lot of the old habits. But it's basically breaking down and a rebuilding process, and it's essentially figuring out what you're putting into your body, the things that you're doing to yourself, the things that you're expecting of yourself, what you're also putting into your mind, and how that, what you put into it, what you allow to go into it, is going to alter the output. How it's going to alter your moods, or how it's going to alter how you see the world, the frame that you see the world. It's very difficult to separate these things from how you feel mentally, and ultimately your general, it's going to decide, or it's going to affect your ultimate general mental health when you're allowing shit to come into your mind. It's like, you are what you eat. Well, it's the same thing as you are what you allow to go into your body. So as a final message, there's a lot you can do about your feelings of depression, right? From my perspective. And I don't mean to get on anyone's back here that feels like they have an uncontrollable depression, or that they feel that they are out of control of their depression. I completely understand that. My mother was a person who, she went through a horrible period towards the end of her life with depression, and she couldn't shake it off herself. She didn't know where it came from, but she encapsulated it in this box, in this idea that this was who she was. And she took a mixture, a concoction, a horrible concoction of drugs that didn't do her any good, and sort of led to her downfall. So I understand that from that perspective. I understand, and I feel sorry for anyone who's going through that. But, if I can give you a little bit of hope in this thing, from somebody who has gone through this and seen a lot of stuff from this perspective, that first, just look at things from the perspective of trying to get outside of that box, that you are what you're going through. Then understand that those feelings, they're only human, that we all have a propensity to have negative feelings as well as the positive feelings in life. I think in my own life, I'm generally going through a very satisfied life since I stopped drinking alcohol. It's very on the level. There's no peaks and troughs, but occasionally I get that. It's just a day or 2 days, or maybe a longer period, where I just feel down, and that's just a fact of life, and I accept that. But I think I've got the tools now to be able to turn myself around and to try and move myself in a more positive direction. So just think about that. Think about the negative feelings or the positive feelings that you're causing by what you put into your body, or what you put into your mind. And I have to say that my mooding, like I said, I'm not immune to what I call depressed feelings. I'm just much better at recognizing them for what they are, and dealing with them from that perspective. So take care of yourself. I'll speak to you in the next video. If you haven't downloaded our quick start preparation guide, there's a link down below to it. It's absolutely free, and help you to get some clarity on where you are, give you some brain tools to help you to build up a bit of confidence in yourself and to step across that line. Take care. Onwards and upwards. Bye now.